Lily always thought she had me wrapped around her finger. For years, I played the role of the devoted, ever patient boyfriend, the guy who would always be there no matter how many times she put me second. I knew I loved her, I really did, but deep down, I also knew something wasn't right. She was the kind of woman who craved attention, who thrived on being desired. Our relationship was never about us, not really. It was about her knowing that no matter how many times she pushed me away, I would always come running back. For years, I told myself that was just who she was, that she'd grow out of it, that eventually she'd see that the kind of love I had for her wasn't something to take for granted. But she never did. And then one day I was just done. I remember the exact moment it happened. She had invited me to a party, a big, flashy event filled with people who mattered to her more than I ever did. As usual, she spent the evening floating from conversation to conversation, laughing a little too loudly at other men's jokes, letting their hands linger a little too long on her waist. Every now and then, she'd glance my way, making sure I was still watching, still waiting. But for the first time, I wasn't. Something in me just switched off. I looked around and realized I didn't belong there. More importantly, I realized I didn't want to belong there. I didn't want to be the man who stood in the shadows waiting for scraps of affection. So I left. I didn't make a scene. I didn't ask her to come with me. I simply picked up my coat, walked out the door, and never looked back. She didn't even notice. Not that night, not the next day, not the week after that. And that was the final confirmation I needed. I had spent years making her my priority, and she hadn't even realized I was gone. That was when I decided it was time to move on. At first, it wasn't easy. The habit of loving someone doesn't disappear overnight. There were moments when I almost caved, moments when I wanted to call her to give her just one more chance. But then I met Haley. It wasn't some grand dramatic moment. It was simple, unexpected. A coffee shop on a regular afternoon. She smiled at me in a way that felt real, like I wasn't just another option. Like I was seen, and suddenly I knew I would never go back. Lily might have thought I'd wait forever, but she was wrong, because for the first time in my life, I was finally choosing me. The first few weeks after I walked away from Lily felt strange, like I was untethered from something that had defined me for too long. I had spent years being caught in her orbit, always revolving around her wants, her needs, her whims. Now, for the first time in a long time, I was completely on my own. And it was liberating. I threw myself into work, into hobbies I had long neglected. I reconnected with old friends, the ones I had pushed aside every time Lily decided she suddenly wanted my attention again. I found joy in the quiet moments, in the simplicity of mornings that didn't begin with wondering where I stood in someone's life. And yet, for a while, she still lingered in my mind. I had given so much of myself to her that the absence of her presence felt unnatural at times. There were nights when my hand almost reached for my phone, instinctively wanting to check if she had texted, if she had realized I was gone, if she missed me. But the silence stretched on, and I refused to be the one to break it. Then, one evening, everything changed. I met Haley. It was nothing dramatic, no love at first sight moment, no grand epiphany. Just a simple encounter in a coffee shop, two strangers who happened to reach for the same cup at the counter. She laughed, a warm, genuine sound. And in that instant, something inside me shifted. Haley wasn't like Lily. She didn't carry herself like she was the center of the universe, expecting everyone to orbit around her. She had a quiet confidence, a kindness that didn't feel forced or calculated. When she spoke to me, it wasn't with the practiced charm of someone who knew they could have anyone they wanted. It was with sincerity, as if she actually wanted to know me. At first, I hesitated. Old habits die hard, and a part of me still carried the scars of loving someone who never truly valued me. But Haley wasn't asking for anything. She wasn't testing my patience or playing games. She was just there, open and real, in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. So I let myself fall. Slowly, cautiously, but undeniably, I fell for her. And just as I was beginning to realize what it meant to be in a relationship where I was seen and valued, Lily finally noticed my absence. The first time she reached out, it was casual, a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" As if nothing had ever happened, as if she hadn't ignored me for months, assuming I'd always be waiting in the background. I didn't respond. A few days later, another message, then a call, then two. Then finally, a long, desperate text. "Evan, I miss you. I was stupid. I realize that now. Can we talk?" Once. Those words would have shattered me. I would have dropped everything, running back to her without hesitation. But now I just stared at the screen, feeling nothing but clarity. Lily had spent years believing that I would always be there, no matter how carelessly she treated me. But she was wrong. I had moved on. And for the first time, she was the one left waiting. Lily's messages kept coming. At first, they were sporadic, simple, almost casual attempts to pull me back into her world. Hey, it's been a while. I was just thinking about you. I ignored them. Not out of spite, but because I had nothing left to say. I had spent years being an afterthought to her, waiting for the rare moments she decided I was worth acknowledging. Now the roles were reversed, and I felt nothing but peace in my silence. But she didn't give up. Days turned into weeks, and her messages became more insistent. The casual tone faded, replaced by something raw, more desperate. Evan, I miss you. Can we talk? I made a mistake. Please just hear me out. There was a time when those words would have broken me. I would have dropped everything, desperate for the chance to be wanted, to be chosen. But now I had Haley, with her easy laughter and the way she looked at me like I was enough just as I was. Haley, who didn't make me question my worth or feel like I had to prove I deserved her time. She had shown me what it was like to be loved for real, and there was no going back to anything less. Lily must have realized that ignoring her wasn't just a phase, that I wasn't sulking, waiting for her to reel me back in like before. Because soon the messages turned into calls, and then one evening she showed up. It was late. I had just gotten home from dinner with Haley when I heard the knock on my door. At first, I thought it was a neighbor or maybe even a delivery mistake, but when I opened it, there she was. Lily Harper, standing in the dim light of the hallway, looking nothing like the confident woman who used to keep me at arm's length. Her makeup was smudged like she had been crying, and for the first time in all the years I had known her, she looked uncertain. Evan, she breathed, as if saying my name would be enough to make everything go back to the way it was. Can we talk? I hesitated, not because I was tempted, because I wasn't, but because I could see something I had never seen before in her eyes. Fear. She had always been so sure of herself, always convinced that no matter how far she pushed me away, I'd come running back. But now she was finally seeing what I had realized months ago. I wasn't waiting anymore. I don't think we have anything left to talk about, Lily, I said, my voice calm. Her lip trembled. Please, just 5 minutes. I sighed and stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I wouldn't let her into my home. Not into the life I'd built without her. She took a shaky breath. I know I screwed up, she said. I didn't see what I had with you until it was gone. She swallowed hard. I thought you'd always be there. I nodded slowly. I know. She blinked as if my lack of anger confused her. Maybe she expected me to lash out, to tell her how much she had hurt me. Maybe she wanted me to. But the truth was, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even bitter. I had simply moved on. I was stupid, she continued, her voice breaking. I kept thinking I could find someone better, someone more exciting, but no one ever made me feel the way you did. I glanced at my watch. Lily, what do you want from me? She stared at me for a long moment before whispering, another chance. I sighed. I spent years giving you chances, you just never took them. Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time I actually believed they were real. But I see it now, she whispered. You were the one person who really loved me, and I threw that away. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift off my shoulders. There had been a time when those words would have meant everything to me, when I would have taken them as proof that I had been right to hold on, to wait, but not anymore. I did love you, Lily, I said, but love isn't just about feelings, it's about effort. It's about choosing someone every single day, and you never chose me. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I was scared. I shook my head. No, you were selfish. Her hands dropped, and she looked at me with something like helplessness. So that's it? I nodded. That's it. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, Lily Harper looked like a woman who had lost. Not because I was punishing her, but because she had done it to herself. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said softly, and I meant it. She sniffled, wiping her eyes. Are you happy? I thought about Hailey, about the way she made me laugh, about the peace I felt whenever I was with her, about how, for the first time in my life, I knew what it was like to be loved without conditions. Yes, I said simply. Lily gave a small, sad smile. Then I guess that's all that matters. She turned to leave, pausing only once before walking down the hallway and disappearing from sight. I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years. Lily had thought I'd wait forever, but I had waited long enough, and now I was finally free. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty hallway where Lily had just been. If this had happened a year ago, I would have been the one walking away in pain, feeling like I had lost something irreplaceable. But not tonight. Tonight, I felt relieved. No anger, no bitterness, not even triumph. just a quiet understanding that I had finally broken free from something that had held me back for far too long. The version of me that had once lived for Lily's approval, that had spent years waiting for her to notice my worth, was gone, and I wasn't going to resurrect him. I turned off my phone and walked to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water as I let my thoughts settle. A part of me wondered how Lily was feeling right now. Was she truly heartbroken? Or was this just another moment of regret? One she would move past the next time another distraction came along. It didn't matter anymore. The past no longer had a hold on me. The next morning, I woke up to find a single unread message from her. I get it now, I really do. But if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me. I stared at the words for a few seconds before deleting them. There was no point in responding. I had already made my choice. That evening, I met Haley for dinner. She greeted me with that effortless smile, the one that always made me feel grounded, as if I had finally arrived at the right place. She didn't ask me about Lily, even though she probably sensed something was on my mind. She never pried, never demanded answers. She just gave me space to be myself, to come to her when I was ready. And maybe that's why I found myself telling her everything over dinner. Not just about Lily's visit, but about all the years I had wasted chasing after someone who never truly saw me. About how for so long I had mistaken longing for love, mistook pain for passion. Haley listened without interrupting, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her wine glass as I spoke. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. You know, she said softly, sometimes we love the wrong people because deep down we're afraid we don't deserve better. Her words settled over me like a quiet truth. I had always known, but never dared to say out loud. For so long, I had convinced myself that I had to fight for love, that being chosen was something I had to earn. But love, real love, wasn't a prize. It wasn't something you had to beg for or chase after. It was freely given. And Haley had given it to me without hesitation. I squeezed her hand. I think I'm finally starting to understand that. Her smile widened. Good, because I'd hate for you to waste any more time. Lily didn't reach out again after that last message, but I knew she was still watching. I saw it in the way she viewed my social media stories, the way mutual friends mentioned her name a little too cautiously whenever they saw me. I could picture her scrolling through my posts, seeing pictures of me and Haley, realizing that I wasn't just moving on, I had already moved on. Maybe that was the hardest part for her to accept, that for once she wasn't the one in control. Months passed, and life settled into something beautiful. How Haley and I traveled together, exploring places I had once dreamed of visiting but had always put off. I found myself laughing more, worrying less. I started pursuing passions I had abandoned long ago, rediscovering the things that made me feel alive. And through it all, Haley was there. Not as someone I had to convince to love me, but as someone who simply did. One evening, as we walked along the beach, the sun dipping low on the horizon, Haley turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Do you ever think about her? She asked. I knew who she meant. I thought about it for a moment before shaking my head. Not in the way I used to, I admitted. I don't miss her, but I do think about who I was when I was with her. And I wonder how I ever convinced myself that was love. Haley smiled, slipping her fingers through mine. Maybe you had to go through it to appreciate what you have now. Maybe. I looked at her at the way the fading sunlight made her hair glow like gold. Or maybe I was just waiting for the right person all along. She squeezed my hand. Well, I'm glad you found me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was exactly where I was meant to be. Months passed, and Lily became nothing more than a distant memory. One of those past experiences that had once defined me but no longer carried weight in my life. I had built something new, something real, and I wasn't looking back. But that didn't mean she had stopped looking at me. It was subtle at first. Mutual friends would mention her in passing, little comments that felt deliberately placed to gauge my reaction. Lily asked about you the other day. She saw a picture of you and Haley. She didn't take it well. She was at the party last weekend. She didn't say much, but she kept looking at the door like she was waiting for someone. I never responded. There was no point. But then one day I ran into her. It was completely unexpected. I was in the middle of running errands when I spotted her at a cafe, sitting alone at a table by the window. She saw me before I could turn away. For a split second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Hope, maybe? Or regret? I considered walking past, just ignoring her like she had ignored me so many times in the past. But I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was just done. So I gave her a small nod of acknowledgement and kept walking. But as I reached the door, I heard her voice. Effin. I could have pretended I didn't hear her. I could have kept going, left her there with her thoughts, just as she had left me with mine so many times before. But I turned around, She was already standing, clutching her coffee cup with both hands like she needed something to hold on to. "You look good," she said, forcing a small smile. "Really good." "Thanks," I replied simply. "You too." It wasn't a lie. Lily had always been beautiful, and she still was, but where I once would have looked at her with longing, now I only saw a woman I used to know. There was an awkward pause before she spoke again. I heard you're doing well." I nodded. "I am." Another pause, another hesitation. Then finally she exhaled and said, "I'm happy for you." For a brief moment, I wondered if she actually meant it, if she truly wished me well, or if those words were just an attempt to convince herself that she had made peace with the consequences of her choices. Either way, it didn't matter. "Thank you," I said, offering a polite smile. She hesitated again, shifting on her feet like there was something else she wanted to say. Maybe she wanted me to ask how she was doing. Maybe she wanted an opening to pour out her regrets, to tell me all the things she wished she had realized sooner. But I wasn't giving her that. Not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but because I no longer needed closure. I had already found it. Within myself, within Haley, within the life I had built without Lily in it. So I didn't ask her how she was. I didn't wait for her to fill the silence. I simply nodded once more and walked away. And this time I knew she was the one watching me leave, not the other way around. And that was all the closure I would ever need.